Okay, I think we
Oh,
made
cool.
it.
I see a recording. Yay.
Sorry about that, everyone. We'll get this. We'll get better every other week. Welcome. This is July 23rd. So second CSI Secret Store call. Thanks for joining. And I think we got some new people who've joined, which is awesome. Want to kick off a round of intros?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and if you do have the link to the doc, just please make sure that you've added yourself as an attendee, so you know you showed up.
Tommy, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. We'll go down the list here. I'm Tommy Murphy. I'm from Google, working on the Google Secret Manager CSI plugin for this driver. Colin?
Hi, everybody. I'm Colin Mann. I work with Tommy at Google. I'm just getting ramped up here, so I'm just attending this meeting to catch up.
Welcome.
Hey, hi, I'm Manish. I'm from Microsoft. I work on the CSI driver and the Azure plugin for the CSI driver.
Hey, I'm Rita from Microsoft. I work on the Secret Store CSI driver and also the Azure Key Vault plugin.
Hey, I'm Tom. I just joined the Vault team at HashiCorp here recently.
Welcome.
I'm Jim. I am now the engineering manager at the ecosystem team on Vault at HashiCorp. We've had some work with Rita and team on the CSI provider.
So Gibson, I'm one of the senior PMs here at Microsoft, managing our secure upstream projects, as this being one of them. Perfect. I think we got everyone. Right, I will moderate and I will attempt to take notes again. Unless anyone else wants to.
I'm happy to help tag team also.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
that'll work
sounds
out.
good.
Awesome. Okay, let's kick off the agenda. Let's see, Rita typing away there.
Yeah, maybe Anish, you want to kick us off with the latest release for the CSI drive?
Yeah, so last week we released 0.012 for the CSI driver. There were a few notable improvements that we added, basically a separate reconciler controller that would create the secrets instead of having the secret creation as part of the node publish volume. And one of the major bug fixes that we had was basically honoring the context when invoking the provider. Kubelet has a context timeout of about 2 minutes, 3 seconds when trying to mount the volume. And when invoking the provider, we weren't setting the context. So we added that so that if the provider doesn't respond within that stipulated time, then the mount would actually fail and then it would be retried the next time. Also with the 0.012, we deprecated an old option of configuring the volume attributes as part of the pod spec. This has been added in the release notes, and I think Tommy added for Google Provider plugin, and they're already using secret provider class. But for HashiCorp, maybe we also need a doc update just to remove references of providing the values in the pod spec.
Phil, do you mind clicking on that link just so we can see the release notes?
Sure.
And actually, last night I saw someone reported that it broke their stuff for the Key Vault provider because of this deprecation.
Oh.
Yeah. I think what we need to do in the future is to make these deprecations a bit more obvious, at least few releases ahead of when we actually deprecate it. Like we need to start making it more obvious maybe as part of a release note saying that we're going to deprecate something like in releases from now.
Right.
Yeah. This is going to be it happen again, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, also with this release, we switched to using the GCR repo for hosting the images. Previously it was in Docker Hub, but now we have moved to GCR, and the way it works is there's a Docker directory in the driver repo where we update the image version. And once the image version is updated, there's a Prow job that automatically builds the image and pushes it to the staging repo. And then there's a manual process to promote the image to the prod registry. And I'm working on a doc for the release guidance so that everyone knows how it's done.
Perfect. Thanks, Anish.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns about anything that went to the latest release? No. Okay, cool. By the way, if anyone wants to be part of the release train or release team, please raise your hand. Always need more help there. And more eyes are always welcome. Yeah.
All right. So we got the next milestone. Looks like we're looking for more contributors. So here's the milestone. Rita, is this all the issues that are needed to burn down for this milestone? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. So Anish and I went through all the issues in the backlog just to save some time for this round. But next time when we do another backlog grooming, we should do it as part of this call. But we did it this time ahead just to save everybody the time this round. But yeah. As you can see, there's a lot of good first issues, I guess. And some of these already have PRs, work in progress.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions about some of the issues on the board here?
Yeah, if you want to pick up any of the issues, just feel free to assign it to yourself and just go from there. And if you have any questions around what the PR needs to do, please feel free to ping on Slack or on the GitHub issues.
Yeah, and then what I'll probably do, I'm just looking here. So yeah, we don't have a project board, so I'll probably just put a simple Kanban board on this so we can track this too as well, just visually. All right.
Sorry, I have a question there. That milestone is just going to be like another point release, not like for V1. Like it's just the next.
Yeah, this is for the next cut that we should include these things if possible, unless there's like a major bug that somebody's waiting on, then we can do like an emergency release or something.
Okay. It's just, I guess this is the first time a milestone has been used. Right?
That's a good point. So I mean, maybe does it make sense to kind of have a semantic type of versioning here?
Are you thinking like 0013?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so we can just track, when there's going to be a next major cut.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Let's see, next we have ability to configure provider call context using a flag.
Yeah, so I did that, right? So in 0.0.12, like I said previously, we fixed the issue by setting the context for the provider calls. Let me see if I can find the PR. So what I was thinking was maybe we can also try and propagate the context timeout to the provider so that the provider can just automatically use use a context with that particular deadline and when it makes calls to the external secret store. Right now for the Azure provider, what I've done is I've added a default context timeout in the provider, but there's no way to configure that. But if we can do that through the driver, we basically need to add another flag apart from the 4 flags that we already support. That would just be context timeout equal to, and then the driver would determine what the timeout should be and just invoke the provider with that. So I added that so we can discuss if that's something that we want to support. If we do, then it would require a change on all the providers as part of the next release.
It might be helpful if maybe you can explain why this was added and what the behavior, the bug users reported.
Let me just post the PR in the chat. Phil, I posted a PR in the Zoom chat if you can open that.
Okay.
Right. I mean, there was an issue on a user had posted on Slack. What they were seeing was the provider call was basically timing out. And it turned out that the issue was they had a network policy configured on the cluster because of which there was no egress traffic. And there was no context in the exec.command used to call the provider. So what happens is the provider doesn't respond within the 2 minute 3 seconds, which is the context timeout. And because of that, the driver context times out. The process is still running, the provider process is still running, but the context times out, and the driver does not unmount the path because the context is timed out without an error. So then the next time when kubelet tries to recall the driver for node publish, it checks if the volume is already mounted. And then if it is already mounted, it does not remount. So then it just responds back saying it's already mounted. And because of that, the pod starts up without the file in the path. And if they are using the sync secret feature, then the secret does not get created because node publish volume did not create that in the old release. So what we did as part of this PR is exec.command, or we just switched to using exec.command context so that we include the kubelet context in the provider call. And if the context times out, then the process is killed. And then there is a context timed out error. So in that case, we successfully unmount. And then the next time the driver invokes the provider, we remount the whole thing. So this context is configured for the driver using the kubelet context. Now what we want to do is we want to propagate whatever is the timeout also to the provider. And for the provider, for the Azure provider today, the default that I've set is 1 minute 50 seconds, just so that it can finish all the operations of fetching from external secret store and also writing the contents to the file system. But we want this value to be configurable, and the only way values can be configured on the provider today is by the driver passing those values to the provider. So this would require addition of a new flag, context timeout, to the provider binary, so that when the driver invokes the provider, it would also add this additional flag and also set a default timeout value. And the provider can honor that context timeout and respond within that stipulated time.
So I get the concept, but I was trying to think, like, let's say on the vault provider, what would I do with that number other than potentially time out myself if I can't get the secret in that amount of time? Is that pretty much the only action?
Right, it is. So, I mean, the provider usually invokes like a lot of external calls, right? And then it's always easier to embed the context in that with the timeout so that it responds back within the time. Otherwise, most of the times it's just context.background and the call just keeps going on until the process is clear.
Yeah, that seems straightforward now.
Right. And I think one big advantage is if we don't have a context in the provider, and if just the driver cancels the context and kills the process, the user actually does not see what the error was in the provider. It does not know why the provider didn't respond. But if we add a context there, then it would say that connection timed out or refused, or at least the user would get the error back so they know if they have misconfigured something on their cluster.
Yeah, this seems simple enough and would provide a little bit more context, like in our logs, as to deadlines being too short for requests to finish and things like that.
Yeah, so I'll open an issue for this. I'll add what we discussed there, and then we can go from there.
Perfect. All right. That's the context. Replacing the end-to-end test suite with a Ginkgo.
So I added that on behalf of another contributor who created the issue and also has a PR open. Today, the end-to-end suite is in using BATS, and what we want to do is move from that framework to either the Ginkgo framework and or also similar to what Cluster API does. But again, it's using the Kubernetes client rather than just running bash commands. So the PR in this switches to using Ginkgo, but it still continues to use kubectl apply, kubectl create, and kubectl commands. Basically, it's just doing an exec.command. And I just want to bring this up so that we can have a discussion on what we think would be the right way to move the E2E test suite to a different framework. I think if we move it to Ginkgo with using the Kubernetes client, similar to how Kubernetes does, then it'll be easier for new users to add E2E tests, and that way we can also have a complete coverage for all the new features that's being added to the driver.
Yeah, so in his work in progress PR, it definitely, I think it's a enhancement to what we have now, but I would like to see a consistent way. As you said, using kubectl apply seems like it's like trying to do it in different ways.
Right.
And hopefully adding with Ginkgo, it will help make it easier for users to add E2Es. Can you click on the work in progress PR in the previous issue?
I'll just say I haven't looked much at the E2E tests or
The bottom replace E2E test.
This here.
And the more down,
oh, sorry.
The PR.
Sorry, Tommy, you were saying something?
I was just going to say I don't have much context yet on the testing frameworks here, so I have nothing to add to this. So.
I mean, so maybe the ask is like maybe folks on the call could take a look at this PR and chime in, kind of do a comparison between what we have with the BATS E2Es and this PR and see which one you would like to work with. It's actually a good way to to see, you know, if this actually enhances the contributor experience. So yeah, so maybe you guys can take a look at this PR.
Is that your main hesitation, I guess, on this right now is just making sure that there's more consensus that it's...
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, since this is a kind of a big change in that it's changing the way we test and changing the contributor experience, right? So we want to make sure if we do it right.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll look at that. Cool. Chime in on the PR, I guess.
Thanks.
All right. So now we have the Git service account token for the CSI driver. KEP has been merged.
Yeah, I think so. Tommy had posted the link last week for this, and then I saw that the KEP has been merged. I got a chance to review the KEP, and I think it's a very good addition. And also, it's something that we can reuse for the secret rotation as well, because there's going to be a new remount. I mean, the flag is still not determined, but there's going to be a new flag which will make the kubelet invoke the node publish volume at every periodic interval. And that is something that we could piggyback on for the secret rotation feature as well. That reduces the overhead on the driver to do the periodic reconcile. It just kubelet call comes in, and node publish volume would just need to go and rewrite the contents of the file rather than unmounting and remounting. So the mount would still remain the same. One caveat is this is going to be implemented as an alpha feature in 120, which would mean if we go through this route for rotation, then users can only use it for 120.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time for adoption.
Yeah.
Like probably 2 years.
Yeah. I think I'm still reviewing the rotation, which is I think the next thing. But yeah, I think I just want to keep this in mind because it will save our plugin. Our plugin has to get the service count for the pod, and that takes a number of round trips and a number of like permissions and stuff that this would save. So just making sure that they kind of can converge in the future is, I think, kind of like my priority there.
Okay. We should definitely add this to that rotation design doc, if not already, as something to keep track of in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. So follow-ups from last sync, secret rotation feature design review.
Yeah, I think the doc is being reviewed right now. Brian couldn't make it because he had other commitments.
Okay.
But I believe he has a branch which has the changes. So maybe the next time you can, I think we probably have to go down that route because the KEP, like I said, is probably only going to come up in 120. But also, if there's a way possible, we need to design it in such a way that when the 120 comes and 121 onwards, we could just have users move to using that instead of having the overhead on the driver for the rotation. We basically just have to think out a way where there's a strategy to move from the logic being in the driver for the periodic reconcile to piggybacking on what the kubelet could automatically do.
All right. Vault provider. Update vault provider to use latest release.
Probably good for me to give a quick status generally on the vault provider. So yeah, we've been for a few months now. We've been really really strapped for bandwidth. So stuff has backed up a bit, and it kind of came to a head when we were doing the webinar because we were going through some tutorials with 0.0.5, and there's actually issues in what have been brought in at that revision, and Jason and I were talking about it, and it needs a little bit of a revamp, because some of the stuff that was put in to handle KVV1 versus KVV2, like all that can be handled cleanly if we just use the Vault API package. Like this is all being done manually with like gets and stuff, and we kind of want to like get to the next level on this thing, clean that up, which will kind of clean up the latest release, get it stable and good, and we can have that be our latest. And that's sort of our nearest, and then kind of burn down some of the open issues and see what's hanging out there. To that end, so I think y'all met Tom. Tom just started. He'll be helping out with that along with Jason. So we've kind of stabilized on the team a little bit and are carving out some actual dedicated cycles for CSI. And I really can't speak to like using the latest release is reasonable enough, but like Helm chart or Windows support, that I would need to discuss that with the team as far as the timelines feasibility. But yeah, so that's kind of the status of where we're at. I noticed there was like an issue a day or two ago. It's like, hey, what's the status of this project? And so yeah, I did want to make clear that it's we kind of want to get it to a, I don't know, long term, like what the steady load of resource we will apply, like how tracking will be, but we definitely want whatever is there to be a stable, production usable, like within the capabilities we're offering, they're solid. And so that's our immediate term goal.
Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. I recall you were talking about cleaning up the implementation a bit along, a while back. So yeah, this is probably a good time to do that. If there's anything you need, in terms of integrating with the latest CSI release and any integration or issues you see, please definitely reach out to the team here, I guess. We'll definitely want to address any of the integration issues you see.
Yeah, I think, as I recall, most of it was fairly like literally like cleaning things up and like stabilizing. There was one open, almost design level decision that was hanging out there. I think you and I had both commented on like, it was sort of, I can't remember the detail. It had to do with where a secret was rendered, because you have the secret name and then the value within the secret. And there was like multiple ways to like denote what you're fetching and where it's going. So I don't know, that may be up for review again. That's probably the biggest like kind of UX-y aspect to what we would need to fix.
Right. I think how you want to present the metadata or this, the parameters that users can provide in the secret provider class is up to the provider, right? As long as, obviously we will need to update the E to E, make sure we're testing the right objects now, right? And the right behavior, the updated behavior, and notify users with the changing behavior in the next release. I think it would be helpful to, similarly with the driver release planning, like it might be helpful to also do that for each of the providers, so that at least people know, like, hey, this is the scheduled release and here's what's coming. That way it's more visible to users.
One thing I have noticed as I've been reviewing some of the newer features, like the Kubernetes sync and some of the rotation stuff, is
Mm.
it does seem like the like provider specific notations of like which objects and like where do they go in the path is you like that knowledge is used by the like the sync thing. So we're right now our driver has like a different way of denoting the secrets and the files that they
Okay.
write to, and that we'll either need to update to more closely match the stuff that like the Kubernetes sync feature uses, or address some of the like schema differences somehow. But I haven't fully formed the thoughts yet on that. It's just something that I have I noticed in like the last week.
Right. So you're talking about the sync object property, right? On the
Yeah.
secret provider class.
No, the actual like it seems like that also relies on the under like parameters, and then you have objects, and then you have array, and then the actual like the secret resource and the file name.
Okay, let me.
It
Yeah.
seems like that format needed to be kept in order for it to pick up like which files to write to which secrets, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I'll bring this up in the chat.
So
Probably.
today, yeah. I mean, if we have time, we should definitely address this. But so just so we're on the same page, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. I guess, can I share screen? Is that cool?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop and
All right. Cool. I think you have to enable sharing. So if at the bottom, if you see permission, so Phil, you will have to do this because you're the host. Yeah.
I just bumped you up to co-host, so
Oh,
give
cool.
you some power here.
Sweet, thank you. Zoom security, yay. All right, let me know when you see my screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
you are
Can you see?
broadcasting. Yep.
Okay, cool. So as you can see, so I think you're talking about this one, right? Or different? No.
Like in the secret provider class.
Mm-hmm.
I think you probably want to pull up a one that has the whole thing with secret objects and.
Okay. Let's see. Test. We'll use test. Okay. Wow, it is taking a long time to load.
I put a link in the chat.
Oh, okay. Maybe you should have shared your screen.
Yeah, if you want to shoot me the link, I can fire it back up.
All right. Okay. You see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're up.
Okay, cool. So everything under parameters is provider specific, right?
Right. But it seemed like the reference to where you have object and name and then secret alias.
Yeah.
That depends on the structure of parameters, objects, array, object, alias. Is that
Actually, it's not. So this object name is essentially the file name that it's mounted. So this is the name of the file. once it's mounted to the file system. And what this is doing is it's actually looking for that file on the file system.
Okay, so object name is just the file name. It is not like picking up the. Okay.
No, but it happens to, I see why you're confused, because it happens to be this, like the object name and object alias determines the name of the file that is that is created. So I think better documentation, obviously, and this really should just say the name of the file. And however, so in, like, say for a different provider, this could be like file name or whatever, right? As long as it matches the logic within the plugin to make sure it's the same. Yeah.
Great. Cool.
Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I just saw some of those references in other places. I wasn't quite sure if it was the same or different or.
That's a good, very good point, though.
Yeah,
Tommy, is the Google, is what you're working on public yet, even if work in progress?
Yes.
Yeah, if you could drop a link, I'd be curious to.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Google provider, I think what I would love to eventually do is have like a table here in the README that has all the providers, and then like a check mark next to all the capabilities as well, so people can see like, okay, which features available in which provider, and then a link to, like, say, example or README or something, right? Like that would be super helpful for users.
Yeah, like where our status is kind of right now is it works, hasn't been tested too much or no integration tests. And,
okay. Yeah.
We're working on doing the like a published Docker image, where right now the repo, you have to build it yourself, which.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
on
that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so I guess once you've done that and we do like a code review, right? And then speaking of E2Es, you'll have to go through this. So yeah, so once that all happens, then we can get the provider added to the README.
And then I think we had maybe some of the same issues as the Vault provider about like bootstrapping Auth or like workload identity or the, so there may be some code on the GCP one that the Vault one can like piggyback on.
Okay. Yeah, anything you can share like on Slack and, you know, tag Jim and folks, right? Yeah, that'll be super helpful. Cool.
All right, great. That is all the agenda items. We got about 10 minutes left for the call. Any other announcements or anything else anyone wants to chat about while we have this time?
Yeah, I want to bring one issue up really quick. I didn't add to the agenda, but in the last community meeting, we discussed about optionally installing the ability to sync Kubernetes secrets, right? Like in Helm. So one thought around that was, if we do that, do we enable it by default and just provide a knob for users to disable it? Or do we disable it by default, and if they need it, they explicitly need to enable it? Because one concern with disabling it by default is when users install it with Helm, they don't go through all the flags that need to be set. So it's possible that they install it and out of the box, sync secret is not enabled. And then when they try it out, it's going to fail. And then they probably will have an issue open, and then they'll, after we tell them that you need to set this flag to enable that feature, then they might try that. But so I think, what do we think is the best way to do that?
That was,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just starting work earlier this week on like plucking that out, and so I think installing it by default but allowing it to be disabled is okay, because I think customers would run into confusion if they tried to use it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it also supports backward compatibility, right? Like they have an old chart and then they upgrade to the new chart, then they still want to continue using that. It should still continue to work.
Yeah, I've actually never used Helm, so I'm digging into that now too. But yeah, I think HashiCorp wasn't on the last meeting. It's just there's to recap. My concern was that this feature allowed you to copy secrets to Kubernetes secrets, but that could be like an escalation of privilege, or like you might not want your secrets copied into like a durable storage that isn't your like vault or key vault or GCP, and it gives the driver permissions over your secrets to like read and write all secrets in the cluster, which you might not want to grant to this for some reason. So that was just kind of why I filed the issue and started looking into it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the spec on that. After the sync, do the secrets persist in Kubernetes? Like as
Yes.
secrets?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
This was requested by a lot of users because they didn't want to change their application code to read from a file. A lot of applications, you know, the 12-factor pattern, right? They actually just use like environment variables, and they're used to like read from Kubernetes secrets or whatever, right? So I definitely agree that we should not expose this feature by default. I feel like it should be an opt-in feature, given that we want the default to be most secure and users should opt in. Having said that, I also think Anisha's concern about backward compatibility is a big one. So maybe what we could do is make this configurable in Helm, expose it as a, you know, parameter and values YAML, and then we can keep it as enabled for a couple of releases and make sure we have that deprecation, like the change message in the release notes, so that people would know, hey, in the next few releases, we're gonna disable it by default. That way we give people sort of like some time to adjust.
So,
what do you think about that?
if I could add a question, I just as, I don't know, kind of think about this just now. Yeah, that sort of rounding down to off by default seems like intrinsically the right way. I'm not quite following the backwards compat. Like we don't have secret syncing now, right? So what's the backwards compat issue?
So, so currently the Key Vault provider is the only one that supports the syncing aspect. However, that feature is on the driver, right? So right now we're basically trying to turn it on and having it configurable in the driver so that there is a way to opt in and opt out. And the current behavior is we give elevated privilege to the driver, assuming that users want that feature on, right? Which is problematic. So this is why Tommy is looking at making it configurable
I see
on
what
the
you're saying.
driver.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so what do folks think about making it enabled for few releases and then disable it in few releases and with a message in the release notes for the next few releases?
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Tommy, for raising the issue and working on the PR.
We'll see if I create the PR this week, hopefully.
Let us know if we can help.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, just a couple of minutes left, but I think we got through everything. This was a good meeting again. I did some real-time note-taking. If I miss anything, feel free to update or add to what I've put out there. And let's see, so our next meeting is in 2 weeks, so that'll be on August the 6th. All right. Thanks everyone for showing up, and we will see you the next call. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Good to see
Thanks.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.